host, Yvonne Wolf, and today our special guest is Nicole Dreiske. She's a digital media expert and the author of The Upside of Digital Devices. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Lovely to be here.
We are immersed in digital devices everywhere, all 24 hours a day. How does your book help us understand that culture?
Great question. So I think that you have to understand my first perspective, which was trying to correct the poor quality of content that children were exposed to. So I started the first International Children's Film Festival in the United States. I got the Academy to recognize it, so for the very first time, people who made great short movies for kids could compete for the Oscars.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And it was a great effort, and at the same time, I noticed that we were missing opportunities. If we just focused on content and on how much children were watching, we weren't thinking about how they were watching, meaning how it was affecting them. Mm-hmm. So in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the Illinois State Board of Ed came to me and they wanted workshops, and I was so surprised. I'm a festival director. Well, what they wanted me to do was teach teachers how to get kids to wake up their minds before they started watching. And that was something that I made a part of my festival. I wasn't just showing movies, and I'll walk you through that. I would say, you can't just come to the festival to watch a movie. You have to learn how to watch a movie. Were you born knowing how to read a book?
Yes,
I bet you weren't. No. Mm-hmm. What did people have to
mm-hmm.
teach you in order for you to be able to read a book? Mm-hmm. So we would go through the way that books are media, and they're very much like movies because there are stories in movies and stories in books. And teachers were saying that in a one-off experience, 82% of their students had improved critical thinking simply from going to the festival. Mm-hmm. Well, then the Illinois chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics wanted a workshop for the doctors, and I started thinking, if the program is so effective that doctors and educators are really interested, what would happen if instead of showing movies to 1,100 kids at a time, what would happen if I did this with only 20 or 30 kids, and I created a whole new curriculum around the viewing experience?
Yes.
That was what inspired me to leave my festival and to start the International Children's Media Center. And what we do, we not only pick very high quality short movies from all over the world, but we wrap them in an accelerated learning curriculum. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, and here's where we get back to the upside, I spent 2 years first talking to parents, to teachers, to pediatricians, and counselors. And I asked them really simple questions, Yvonne. The first question was, what does a great relationship to screens and technology look like to you? Mm-hmm. What do we want from our kids and their relationship to these very powerful devices? We're not helpless. We're not without power. We can create that. So tell me, what do you want? Mm-hmm. And parents had a wish list that started with very different things than the teachers wanted. So for example, parents, one of the first things that was said was, I would love it if my child, when he or she is upset by something or has a lot of questions, if they would come to me instead of turning to the 5-year-old next to them, for instance. Because by the time they're 5 or 6, very frequently they're not coming to us anymore. Right. And there's a good reason for that, and we'll get back to that. But so they wanted their children to be asking them questions about this amazing media universe, and kids weren't talking to them. Teachers, by contrast, were saying things like, okay, we're working 6 hours a day to teach the basics of literacy, character, plot, setting. Mm-hmm. But the minute a child goes home, they shrug off all that learning like a jacket, and they sit there in front of a screen paying no attention to the fact that those same structures, character, plot, and setting, are in almost all media, and in games, and in apps. There are characters. Right. So we're missing a real learning opportunity. So after getting their wish list, we went to the drawing board and we started putting together the ScreenSmart approach.
And this sounds a lot like the Common Sense Media, people who are concerned about screen use and then what students are learning on the media, and then the collaboration of parents and school.
Well, it's a very different, I love Common Sense, and I always recommend what they're offering to parents, but they are essentially a resource site. So if you are concerned about a certain app or a certain game or a certain movie, you can go on their website and get the ratings. And they have a digital citizenship course that I like very much, which is about how to be a better person on the internet. What we're doing is something completely different. We are using a 3 to 5 minute movie to accelerate learning, change brain chemistry, boost literacy, social emotional learning, inferential reasoning, and higher order thinking. It's completely different. We're an in-school program that solves problems for teachers. The reason we get calls is because a lot of well, you probably know this data, but more kids are being kicked out of preschool than out of elementary school. Yeah, and it's problems with self-regulation, for example, problems with focus.
Seeing that very much.
And those are the kinds of problems that the ScreenSmart approach solves. It's a completely different methodology. And it combines sensory tools, which are kinesthetic, visual, and auditory. And we combine those tools with intellectual goals. And you kind of have to see it in action. So if you want me to do it with you, I can. I don't know if that would be helpful to your viewers, but it's really more fun. You will have more fun doing the ScreenSmart approach than you could possibly imagine, because
let's talk about what is ScreenSmart. You develop a ScreenSmart program, right? And how is it relevant in the book?
Okay, well, the book came about because the ScreenSmart program was so effective that the nice people who put out the Chicken Soup for the Soul series asked me for a book. And I wrote it not for teachers, but for parents. Now, really, I should have written it for teachers because by the time that request for the book came out, I had done 7 years of field testing with over 5,000 students. And we're in schools all over the country. So we were in Florida, we were in Chicago a lot, and in the suburbs, and then also in California. And again, when you have it's called a proof of concept year, you take your basic methodology, you set out your outcomes, and then you go into a lot of schools and you make promises about what you're going to deliver. And the fun part about that, Yvonne, was this. I could predict that children in the ScreenSmart workshops would have better reading skills and better literacy skills, because that was a direct focus. I could predict that they would have better communication skills because we're engaging them with open-ended questions all the time. I could predict that they would be more compassionate and kinder because we integrate social emotional learning into the practice. What I could not predict was that tiny children would go home and tell their parents to turn off the TV. It wasn't my goal. And it took us 2 years to figure out why that was happening. Well, it was fascinating. Would you like to know why?
Oh, yes.
It was a lot of fun for us. We give kids categories into which they can sort their viewing experiences. And any early childhood expert will tell you that categories are what help children build neural networks. Well, we know kids are watching 1,400 hours a year. Even our littlest ones are watching screens 1,400 hours a year, and I can assure you that in those littlest ones, they're not using it for homework. So, but it's all one big dumpling.
Yes, yes, one big
They don't, it's
pile,
thumbs
right?
up, or they're not
Yes.
processing, they're not discussing it. So the way we develop the categories, and let me do it with you the way we do
Yes,
it with
of
children.
course.
I'll say, well, so we're watching so many screens, and we count all the screens we're watching in a classroom or at home.
Okay.
We'll go around, we'll count all the screens, and we'll have fun doing that, and then they know all the screens. And then we talk about when we're using the screens, and it starts to sink in that, wow, I'm doing this a lot. Even if I'm 3 years old, I'm watching before school, I'm watching after school, I'm watching before bed, and sometimes if I've got a screen in my very own room, I'm watching when my mommy and daddy go to bed. Uh-oh. Okay, so I'm watching, and then I'll ask a really simple question. And the first question is, where does everything we see on a screen go? Does it fall on the floor? Does it fly out the window? Where does it go? And they will tell me, Miss Nicole, it goes, and there are many answers. It goes in my brain, it goes in my head, it goes, okay, well, if everything is going in here, maybe we want to pay attention, because I don't think I want things getting in here that I don't know about.
Right.
How about you? So I say, so why are we watching? So are we watching because it's boring? Are we watching because it's, something that we have to do? No, we watch. Why? Because it's a 3-letter word. It begins with F, ends with N. I'm treating you as I would a 4-year-old.
Yes.
And they'll tell me it's fun. And I'll say, fun. Now this is where you get the sensory word.
Yes.
And then they tell me some of the things that are fun. And this is where parents or teachers have to get very calm, very patient, and keep a smile on your face, because if they tell you that they saw Scream 3 and it was fun, you don't want to jump up on the table and start yelling. You just take it in and move on. So what was fun? So then they give you specifics. It can be SpongeBob, it can be My Little Pony, it can be something on YouTube. All right, it can be Peppa Pig. That's fun. All right. So you told me that you've seen a lot of things that were, what's this word? Fun. But have you ever seen anything that mommy and daddy and your auntie and your uncle and your teacher told you was not good? Well, if it's not good, what is it? It's bad. It's bad or naughty or, okay, so bad. Let's get another thing. So you said it was fun, but have you ever seen anything on a screen that you know was bad? And where people were doing things that were, what's that word again? And they say it with me, bad. And then they start telling me things they've seen. They've seen people hitting. They've seen people shooting guns. They've seen people harming other people. They've seen stealing. And they've heard bad, so bad. But then I'll go back and I'll say, no, wait a minute. You told me it was fun, but now you said it could be bad. Well, what about sad? Have you ever seen anything that was sad? And then they tell me somebody's mommy died, or somebody got left behind and didn't get to go to a fun thing that everybody else was. They'll tell me all the things they saw that were sad. And then the last one, scary. That's a very important one. And then we talk about, I ask them, what are the things that you've seen that were scary? So suddenly we've got fun, because you don't want to be all negative. Fun, bad, sad, scary. And by the time we've done that, we circle back around to, now do we see how many different kinds of things we're watching? That's only in the first lesson, Yvonne. By the second lesson, and this takes 20 minutes, no more. It can take, if I'm doing it in a ScreenSmart play-along for parents with their children, it takes 15 minutes. I do these at bookstores. I do these at churches and libraries.
And by categorizing their experience, they start to tabulate how much they're spending on that?
Not so much tabulate as notice what's fun.
Self-awareness?
It's awareness of differences within the content. Now the self-awareness is separate. Because when we are watching something, I will give them, we call it top loading. So let me go back to the categories are kind of set to the side. What we do with kids before they start viewing, you see what I'm doing with my hands? Can you see it? Okay. So we talk about energy, and while we're talking about energy, I say you're going to move your hands just the way I'm moving it. Move them, keep them. So now what is energy? And I never give them an answer. Yvonne, this is all child-centered,
Yes.
open-ended questions. So what is energy? And so they'll tell me, energy is something you shouldn't use too much of because then you won't have enough. Or they'll be able, and so then I'll ask them questions like, well, if I were a car, what would I need to have energy?
Yes.
And a child today said, a battery, which is great. So you have an electric car. And another child said, gas. Okay, and if I'm a monkey, what would I need for energy? And they'll tell me, and if I'm a person. So energy helps us do what? Helps us, what are my hands doing? They're moving.
Yes.
Energy helps us move. But it's not enough to have energy. We're going to use our energy and our, now do you want the big word or the little word? And everybody wants to use the big word. Concentration. Now, see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
We're physicalizing. We're creating muscle memory. We're going to use our, what did I say? What's this word?
Energy.
Energy
Yes.
and our concentration. Now, what's concentration? And I'll let them tell me. They'll tell me it's when you think very, very hard, or it's when you put your whole mind on one thing. Or say, well, let's go back to the beginning. We're going to use our what?
Energy.
And our
concentration.
Now, here's why. To keep our minds awake. Can you do that with me? We'll do it again. We're going to use our energy
Yes.
and our, what's this one?
Concentration.
To keep
our
our
minds
minds awake. And that way, we're going to know what's getting in here when we're watching. So we're going to know. That's a really important thing. All right, so that's the setup. We call it priming the mind.
Yes.
Right away, kids know that this is something very different. It's not going to be sit back and let some drool come out of your mouth. They're going to be using their energy, concentration, mind awake. Then after we do that, I'll give them very specific jobs. When we watch, I want you to think about what you like, what you don't like, and why. Can we say that together? What we like, what we don't like, and why. And we even do this before every festival. I have a big festival at the Northbrook Library every year, and we do this with the kids before they watch movies.
Okay.
It's an important thing because, and let's get a little neuroscience in here. I know that's a big scary word, and I know everybody wants to run for the hills when we use a word like that, but be patient because it's a really good word. The part of the brain that is active when you are watching screens is the lower reptilian brain stem, okay? And that's when you're watching without any intervention, any interaction, so the reason kids get that glazed look on their faces is because a steady stream of endorphins is being released, and they naturally glaze over a little. Now, not every child has that response, but many, many do. So think about the 1,400 hours a year that they're watching. Why would we want kids spending 1,400 hours a year with just one part of the brain?
Right.
We're getting so many symptoms from kids now.
Yes.
And everybody's saying, oh, it's part of the culture. It's not. This is all something that we can change by the simple expedient of engaging them and talking to them before the screen goes on. We call this turn on the mind before turning on the screen.
Yes.
Any parent can do this. You don't have to do it the way I do it in the classroom. Any parent can do this in the simplest, most fun way. You have to make dinner, so they're about to get it on a tablet. And if you don't want to do energy and concentration and mind awake, that's fine. What you do is say, okay, so what did you watch yesterday? What was the last Sesame Street show you were watching, the last Peppa Pig show, or the last what was happening in that? And they'll tell you something very short. Okay, so today you're going to watch whichever this one is. I want you to tell me something new that character does, and then you can talk to me about it over dinner. And then you go away, they're watching, you make dinner, come back, and just make sure you touch back in on what happened and let them tell you about it. That is the simplest, easiest way to start. Here's what we found out at festivals. Kids are brilliant about screen time, but there is no forum in which they can access this expertise and excellence. Instead,
no framework.
Exactly. And
there's no objective given. There's no results asked.
That's right.
And this is so the lack of some kind of instruction to process what they see.
We just call it prime and prompt.
Yes.
Prime the mind so that while they're watching, if they're looking for something
Yes.
that they're going to talk to you about, they can't use the lower reptilian brainstem. They have to use the cerebral cortex.
Okay.
And also, the carrot at the end of that is I get to tell mommy, I get to
Yes.
tell daddy, I get to talk about what I noticed.
So tell us more about the upside of your digital
But
devices.
the
then.
upside is that by priming the mind, by discussing,
Yes.
we develop stronger habits
Yes.
of observation and community with our families, because we're going to share our ideas, and accountability, something that is completely absent from the solitary screen experiences
and,
that we allow kids to have.
The access to the digital world has almost no connection with what we're expecting to do in the real world. Okay? So this is a book more about the how we use
Yes.
digital devices, not to wing or use less of it, or more or
here's the
less
thing.
of it. Is
This is what we
about?
found over and over with ScreenSmart. Teachers call us to report these things, and it's electrifying to us because it's like the gift that keeps on giving. Ms. Neshawaite from Garvey School said, Miss Nicole, they told me to turn it off because they weren't being screen smart. Do you understand what that means? It means they have started to notice how they're being affected. I never do this. If you watch this is, no child cares what I think about what they're watching.
Yes.
No, whether I'm a parent, a teacher, doesn't matter. But if they're starting to notice, and let's look at this, what we're feeling and thinking while we're watching. You see the movements?
Yes.
What I'm feeling and thinking. And so that I could prime with that for I want you to notice while you're watching Big Bird and he's what you, not what Big Bird is feeling, what you are feeling and thinking while you're watching, and then come talk to me about it. If children know that you care
Yes.
about what they're feeling and thinking,
Yes.
they're going to care. If they have a chance to talk to you about it,
yes.
they have far greater awareness of how they're being affected.
So you have to,
Teachers say
they have
to us,
learn how.
yes,
to
it's such a, but they like learning it as long as we're not doing this. If you notice, and say in session number 3, I'll ask a question like this: is it possible to watch too much? I mean, it might not be. If you think it's not possible, you tell me. But if you have watched too much, why don't you tell me what happened? And so they will. I get answers that are hilarious and tragic at some
But
time.
sounds okay. I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
but
Yeah,
it
go
does
on. What's
to
it?
me sounds like what we talk about digital addiction, and about when you talk to a junkie and you ask them what they took, and they will tell you exactly what they took. And we can ask our digitally inundated young child, and they will tell us what's too much for them.
And this is where it gets to be magical, Yvonne, because ScreenSmart lays the foundation for children to resist screen addiction. When they are being screen smart and they like it, and by the end of this, they know when I'm being screen smart, I use my energy and my concentration, and I keep my mind awake. I think about what I like, what I don't like, and why. I pay attention to what I'm feeling and thinking about what I'm watching, and I talk about it. Those are the ingredients.
Yes.
And if I'm a teacher working with a preschool or a kindergarten, I will integrate key learning words like character, plot, setting, problem, solution, beginning, middle, end. That's the beauty of this half-hour session. It will take every goal that the teachers need to meet during their learning sessions with kids, help them meet those goals better, provide self-regulation and articulation skills, and accelerate learning overall.
Yes. Nicole, I read about you from the North Shore magazine. What a wonderful speaker you are for parent groups up and down the North Shore. Could you tell us a little bit about your
connections with the North Shore?
How much you know us.
My mom is still in Winnetka. I went to New Trier. I'm living in Northbrook. I do a big festival, as I mentioned, at the Northbrook Library, but also have done parent talks there. I'm going to do one at the Community House this coming Sunday, and probably for several preschools in the area, because we're arranging parent workshops.
Yeah, that's really where we see that happening, where the kids are so
absorbed,
unaware of their surroundings, and having trouble to focus.
And that's what we can change so easily by giving them better self-awareness while they're using screens. And they will, first, you will love talking to them. You'll be amazed at how bright and brilliant they are. And then we stop having this problem of screens being something that isolate us from one another in our families, something where we can talk to each other. I mean, for example, if you're on your phone and you're a parent, don't just sit there, narrate what you're doing, saying, I'm looking for the store, the address of the store we're going to, and I'm answering an email about your play date.
Yes, we do
right
that.
there. Then they know that you're not just staring at your phone.
Yes.
You're doing something very specific with it. And so just that gives them the understanding that you, the parent, aren't like them when they sit there like this, that you're actually doing something with that phone.
You're not isolated.
Yeah.
Yes. Nicole, so what is your message out there for our parents and teachers?
I think the core message is turn on the mind before turning on the screen. But let us help you do this. We're here to help. And we're in 5 schools right now. We can be easily in 15 schools. If these techniques sound like something your early childhood classes can use, just call us at the International Children's Media Center. It's icmediacenter.org or 773-528-6854, or call me. We are here to help. We do parent workshops, we do professional development, and we do it all over the country. A lot of it, however, is right here in Chicago and the northern suburbs.
Well, thank you, Nicole. It's been a pleasure learning about digital devices from you.
Thank you. Lovely to speak with you.
And thank you for watching. Join us next time on Off the Shelf.